All right, everyone, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the 23rd Annual Metro Children's Water Festival. Typically, this festival is held in person at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds each September, but obviously this year we are online. So my name is Madeline Sevland, and I will be your co-host for today. I'm an employee of the Carver County Water Management Organization, which is in charge of protecting and managing surface waters such as lakes, rivers, wetlands, and we also dabble a little bit in groundwater. Myself, along with all these lovely people, form the planning committee for the Children's Water Festival. So a number of us are water resource professionals, water educators, communicators, people that work in the natural resources or environmental field. Our virtual festival runs all week long, and we have 9 live classes that are being held on our Zoom platform, but they are also being hosted on our YouTube channel live, so you can watch them in real time. And if you happen to miss one or go back and see what's already been shown as a live class, you can actually go back to the YouTube channel and watch recordings. And there's a bunch of other pre-recorded videos and lesson plans that you can access on our website, which is shown right there on the screen. It's metrocwf.org. So today, if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to use the question and answer box. There is also a chat box option, and we will be monitoring for both. So if you have questions at any time during the presentation, feel free to just type those in right there. And our presenters also have some Q&A where they may unmute some of you if you wish to actually speak. So we are ready to get started. Our presentation today is What Lives Here and Why, using biological monitoring to find problems in a watershed. And our presenters are Brooke who is a chloride coordinator for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and Britt Bingness, who is the outreach and education coordinator for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. So I will turn it over to them to take it away.
Thanks, Madeline. And I see a hand raised. So I'm going to try to allow the kids to talk. Did it work? Do we have a question before we start?
What are we doing here today?
What will we do today?
Yes, what are we doing today?
That is what I'll show you next. So I'm going to share my screen. My name is Britt Bingness, and I work at the Pollution Control Agency, and that's a state agency, and our mission is to protect the environment and human health. And I teach kids and adults through exhibits and learning about water quality and air quality and climate change and lots of topics that affect and define the place that we live here in Minnesota. And what we're going to do, I'm going to have Brooke introduce herself too. And what we're going to do is learn about using the bugs that live in a stream to investigate if the stream is healthy or unhealthy. So we're going to do an activity together or review an activity that you hopefully did ahead of time, and then to talk about what might be going on in these two streams. Sound good? So Brooke, why don't you introduce yourself before we get started?
All right. Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for being with us today. My name is Brooke, and I work at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency with Britt. And we are a state agency, so we work for the state of Minnesota. And our agency's job is to protect the environment. And so what I have been doing since I've worked there, I went to school for water resources. So I'm looking at our lakes, our streams, and trying to find out what we can do, what I can do as a state employee to help keep Minnesota's lakes and streams clean, so that not only can all the fish and everything else that lives in those lakes and streams stay healthy, but how we can continue to go boating on it and go swimming and all the fun things that I love to do. And now that I love to take my kids out to do, like kayaking, and just swimming in a lake. So that's what I'm able to do, is find out ways to better understand our lakes, and then how can we protect them from pollution.
Great. So I'm curious, if everybody did the pre-video and the worksheets about the two streams. So let's practice using that Q&A box or the chat and just write yes or no if you were able to watch the video and complete the worksheets. I'd be curious to know yes or no, because it will change how much I explain as we jump in. The video is about some people who work at the Pollution Control Agency. And what they're doing is they're sweeping through the stream with nets, and walking through with waders on, flipping over rocks and logs, and looking for anything living in the stream. So that might be little tiny insects. It could be frogs. It could be minnows. There are lots of critters that live in a stream, and the deep parts will have different animals than in the rocky parts. And so they go into various parts of the stream collecting insects. And I see that there is one no on the activity. So I'll just step you through what this little worksheet is. So if you have your worksheets in front of you, you can look at yours, and I'm going to click to the next slide and show you what mine look like. So we pretended like biologists went and swept up insects and invertebrates from the stream, and this is what they found. Stream A has this group of insects here that I'm circling with my pointer, and stream B had this group over on the other side. And for those who did the activity, we have these identified, and just like scientists at the Pollution Control Agency would do, they have sorted them and identified them, and then we're going to tally them and count them up. So the activity was to create a bar graph. And the bar graph is how many of the things we found in each stream are sensitive species, meaning they don't like any pollution. Like certain types of pollution will really cause them to die or not be able to have eggs survive. And so they can only live in clean water that meets their needs. Somewhat tolerant species can live with a little bit of pollution, and tolerant species are pretty good at living in a lot of different places. There's a key down here for which species are sensitive, which species are tolerant, and which are somewhat tolerant rather, and tolerant. So to complete the bar graph, some of you might have done this. Oh, sorry about that. For example, there are in stream A 2 northern casemaker caddisfly larvae. So I'm going to look down here. Which category is the northern casemaker caddisfly? Take a look. And I'll point it out here in the sensitive species. So 2 boxes got colored in on my graph for the northern casemaker caddisfly. So I did that for each species in stream A, and I got this bar graph. Then I did that for each species in stream B and got this bar graph. They're a little different. And so what scientists do when they collect data and information is they look at that data and they start to notice and wonder about it. So we had everyone who was able to do the pre-activity answered 3 prompts. And even if you didn't do the pre-activity, you can look at my graphs and you can think about these 3 prompts. The first one is I notice. The second one is I wonder. And the third one is I think maybe. So I notice. What do you see in my bar graphs or in the information that was collected? I'm wondering if someone would share their I notice statement. And you can do that by raising your hand, and we'll unmute you and let you share. And I can't see the hand raised. Brooke, if you can you call on somebody?
Yeah, I don't see any hands up at the moment.
I notice. You can do that even if you're just looking at it for the first time right now.
Well, while we're waiting, I will just say something that I notice is I notice that there's a tree frog or a wood frog in one of them, and there's not in the other one.
That's
so
a good
that's one
observation,
thing
Brooke.
that I noticed. And we do have a hand. It looks like Jenny Vickers has her hand up, so I will allow you to talk. Oh, it says that you're using an older version of Zoom, and I'd have to promote you to a panelist to allow her to talk.
Maybe you could type if that's something you're comfortable doing.
Should I try promoting her to a panelist? Probably not. No. So you can use either the chat box or the Q&A. So on the bottom of your screen there should be a bunch of little icons. If you click on one of those, you'll be able to type something that you notice. I also notice that stream B only has they only have 2 bars in the graph in that first line that says sensitive species.
Yeah, and that's quite a bit less. On stream A, what's the number?
Yeah, it looks like we're up to 7 on the stream A.
Good. Well, hopefully you can type in Jenny and anyone who is on that Zoom account with you today. We'll look for that. The next one is...
So Kit says that she doesn't have her worksheet, but you can just look at the worksheet on the screen and you can share any of your things that you notice by just looking at this screen. So you don't have to have your own worksheet. That's okay. You can just look on the screen and just let us know is there anything you notice or that stands out to you between these 2 streams.
And now I'm going to actually have anyone share I wonder or I think maybe statements. So if there's anyone else willing to share, you can do any of those prompts. I wonder. Do you wonder anything about these 2 streams or what's going on? So I'm going to share one thing that my son wondered when we did this together. He said, I wonder what's killing the sensitive bugs. In stream B, they're not there. Is something killing them? And Brooke is wondering, why are there more tolerant species in stream B versus stream A? So these are really good questions, and we don't know the answers just from the information we have. But we might think these aren't the same. We expected them to be the same because otherwise the streams were the same. Maybe something's going on. And at the Pollution Control Agency, we can measure water chemistry, so temperature, some other variables like what the water is like. But by looking at what's living there, we can get a good picture of the water health, the health of the water over the long run, over a whole year. So maybe something's going on in these 2 streams. We're going to teach you a little bit about a pollutant that does impact a lot of streams and lakes in Minnesota, and it's on the rise. So we're going to teach you a little bit about that, and then we're going to come back and look at these sheets and think about maybe something going on in this stream having to do with the roads. I want to point out before we leave this slide that up at the stream B at the top, one thing we do know about this stream is that more than 18% of the watershed is covered in paved roads. More than 18% of the land around the stream where the water flows to the stream is covered in paved roads. I think I wonder if something has to do with those roads, Brooke.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something. So as we're looking at the differences in these two streams and what's living there. One that stood out to me was that beautiful tree or wood frog that we've got over there. And one thing that I know as being kind of an expert on salt and what is polluting or how salt is polluting our waters is that those wood frogs are very sensitive to one particular pollutant called chloride. So we sometimes just call it salt, but it's actually two different elements. You've got sodium and you've got chloride. And the chloride part of that is toxic to a lot of these insects. So those sensitive species, they cannot live in waters that have high salt. So we're Minnesota, right? We have freshwater lakes and streams. We don't live near the ocean. So the species that live in our lakes and streams, they don't want to live in salty water. So if we tried to take a saltwater fish and make it live in a freshwater lake, it wouldn't do very well because that's not its normal habitat. That's not where it was designed to live. So Minnesota fish and insects want to live in fresh, clean water. And we just don't have a lot of chloride in our water. And so naturally, we don't have a lot of chloride in our water. But now we have been noticing as our water quality staff who go out and collect samples of water, and that's a part of their job, is they actually get to go out on a boat on certain days in the summer and on the streams, and they get to not only scoop up all the things living in those streams, but they get to collect a sample and then they send it off to a lab. And one of the things that they are looking for in our lakes and stream is that part of salt that I mentioned, chloride. So what we're seeing in a lot of our waters across our state is we're seeing an increase in the amount of chloride in our lakes and our streams and our wetlands. And that's really a problem because as we talked about earlier, the Minnesota fish and the Minnesota bugs don't want to live in a stream that's got high chloride. It's not good for them. And chances are they're not going to have a healthy, long life. And a lot of the eggs that might not hatch then. So when they go to lay their eggs, a lot of those fish and those wood frogs and those other amphibians that lay their eggs in the water, they just won't be able to survive because the water's too salty. And there are a couple different sources of this salt or chloride that are making its way into our waters. So have all of you lived in Minnesota for at least one winter? I'm guessing most of you probably have lived here through last winter. Maybe not. Maybe you're new to Minnesota. If you are, welcome. But for those of us who've lived here for a while, we know that winter brings snow and ice and cold. And has anybody noticed when you're out in the winter, do you see those trucks driving down the streets? And they kind of have something in the back of them that looks maybe like it's snow, but they're actually putting it on the roads. I'm guessing you guys have seen that. If you haven't, pay attention when you're out driving with your parents this winter. And actually what they're using is salt. So they're actually putting salt on the road to melt the ice. And the way that works is that salt actually changes the temperature at which water freezes. So hopefully, as you guys learn more about science in school and you get to do fun, cool experiments, you'll learn about how when you add salt to water, you put plain water and salty water in the freezer, or if we have a really cold week here in the winter, you could just put it outside overnight and you can look and compare which one turns to ice faster and how does that ice look different. The one with salt is going to take a lot longer to turn into ice. And it's going to be kind of slushy. It's not really going to form a nice solid ice pack. It's going to keep it because it's actually changing the temperature at which water freezes. So that's super cool from a science perspective. But that cool, salt that we use to change the temperature at which water will freeze is really bad for the sensitive species in Minnesota. And so what happens is that salt goes directly into our lakes and our streams and our groundwater. So the salt just runs off, and hopefully you've seen those storm drains. Maybe you've even done a project in your community where you've cleaned up storm drains, getting those grass clippings and leaves out of them. Well, the salt water from the roads is just going to run off into those storm drains and get into our lakes and our streams. And so that is the biggest source of chloride in our state, but there's also other sources. Water softeners, you guys might not even know what that is, but your parents probably do. There's probably one in your basement. If you live outside of St. Paul or Minneapolis, chances are that the drinking water coming to your house is probably hard. And so we add salt to the water to soften it up a little bit. There's a few other sources too, but those are really the two big ones that we're trying to find ways to reduce that because we want to protect the fish and bugs living in our lakes and our streams and our wetlands. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to think about salt as pollution because how many of you like salt on your French fries? I know I do, yes. And so, Allison raised her hand. She likes salt on her French fries too. So it seems like, well, I put it on my French fries, so it can't be that bad. But it's not that bad for us. Obviously, if we have too much salt, it's not good for us. But the chloride part is really not bad for us as humans. It's just bad for the fish and the insects that live in our water. Like I said before, Minnesota fish didn't come from the ocean. Their bodies are not designed to live in salt water. So it's really important that we try to keep our lakes and our streams and our wetlands free of pollution and free of chloride so that they can live long, healthy lives. And so now we are going to go ahead and watch a short little video that just kind of walks you through and talks a little bit about salt pollution and some things that maybe we could do about it. So pay attention, and then afterwards we'll talk a little bit about some ideas that you might have for what we can do about this problem.
On a cold day like today, there is a good chance you're using salt to prevent slippery sidewalks.
However, spreading the chemical could be doing more harm than good when it comes to the environment. Reporter Sonia Goins explains.
Crystal Lake in Robbinsdale looks like a Christmas card with snow-covered trees and sunny skies. However, a common chemical is threatening the winter wonderland.
A lot of people really overuse salt. They think more is better.
The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency says high levels of salt are damaging Crystal Lake.
We have collected some chloride data from Crystal Lake here, and we found several samples that were above the threshold, so above the level of chloride that's safe for aquatic life.
Shingle Creek and Sweeney Lake also have high levels of sodium chloride. The ice-melting substance is toxic to aquatic life.
At really high concentrations, it can cause death, but even at low concentrations, it can cause changes in the diversity of the species you see in the lake. It can change their ability to reproduce.
Every time you sprinkle salt on sidewalks and streets, the runoff goes right into waterways.
There's no way to remove it. So the rain gardens or the stormwater ponds that we see that collect a lot of our runoff will not remove chloride.
We all need to do our part to protect rivers and streams. If salt or sand is visible on the sidewalk, it's no longer working. It's best to sweep it up to prevent it from going into the waterways. And if you do use salt, a little will go a long way.
This small cup, which is an 8-ounce cup, is enough salt to de-ice a 150 square foot area, which is equivalent to this parking stall.
However, on days when it's 15 or below, you might want to skip the salt altogether.
It's not going to melt, it's going to waste money, and it's going to harm the environment.
Sonia Goins, 12 News.
Pollution control officials say the more salt we use, the more likely the chemical will get into our drinking water. Once it's in drinking water, it's very expensive to treat and remove.
Well, that got exciting at the end there.
Yes, it did.
I heard most of it, and I hope everyone else did too. And Brooke, so I heard several ideas in that news story. You were on the news. That's cool.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
So this is every winter. These kinds of stories come on because we see the salt trucks and we wonder, what can we do? What can we do to reduce this problem? And that news story had a couple of ideas.
Does anybody want to raise their hand?
I was going to say, do you want to say that, or do you? We're looking for a little bit of a conversation now with our participants, and Brooke and I can chime in too. So Brooke's job is to really think about this. Like, we're seeing different bug species survival in lakes and streams, particularly where there's more than 18% of the land around the lake or stream is paved. So those are usually like cities, lots of paved areas, urban areas. And we want those to be nice places for plants, animals, and people to live. So we feel in Minnesota, by setting water quality standards, we've decided it's important to us that every lake and stream is clean in our state. So Brooke has been working with many people about what are the best solutions for this.
We have
some ideas. Great.
Yes, Michelle. Go ahead. You're unmuted.
Christopher.
Oh, Christopher. Okay, you must be using a parent's name. Christopher, go ahead.
They should use less salt water, like salt, on the roads.
Yeah, use less salt on the roads. That's a really good idea. And that is an idea that someone had several years ago. And we actually created a whole training program for winter maintenance. So that's what we call the plow truck drivers who go out and clear the snow for us and use salt. We call them winter maintenance professionals. And we have partnered with them and created a training program to help teach them some things that they can do to use less salt, but still keep it safe in the winter. Because, right, it's really important that we still get around safely in the winter. We don't want people getting into car accidents, and we don't want people slipping and falling and getting hurt. So it's really important that we are thoughtful when we make those decisions on using less salt. So that is a really good idea. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
Okay.
Thank you, Christopher. Mm-hmm. Do we have any other ideas on what we could do to solve this difficult problem we have? Well, while we wait to see if we've got, oh, look at that.
Oscar.
Oscar.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you unmute him, Brooke?
Yep.
If it's really, really, really cold, just don't use salt at all. Just don't do it.
Yeah, and that's because you probably must have heard or you knew from the video that if it's colder than 15 degrees, it's not going to do anything anyway. It's still going to be icy. So you're right. There's times and places when salt doesn't do any good, so let's not put it on there.
Yeah, so that's where it's really important to know what is in your bag of salt. So if you are using salt at home, or if the professionals are using salt on, like the parking lot or sidewalk for your school, it's really important that they know and understand what kind of salt they're using. Different types of salt work a little bit differently. And so it's important they know and they learn about the product they're using so they can use it for the right temperature and the right conditions. So that's another thing that we help teach in that training class. Thank you, Oscar, for sharing that. Is there any other ideas that you guys had?
This isn't my idea, Brooke, but I've seen trucks that aren't putting salt out, but they're like spraying something on the road, right?
Yeah, so that's a really good observation because there are a lot of different tools to manage snow and ice. So there's a lot of different ways that we can help keep the pavement safe. And one way is to use liquid salt instead of that truck with the grains of salt that fall behind it. If they go and they'll have a big tank, a big truck with a tank on the back of it, and they will actually be using liquid salt. And so that's kind of like salt water, and they put that down before the storm comes. So if we're going to get a big snowstorm, they'll put that down on the road beforehand. So that way it prevents the ice from bonding to the road. So then that way they're able to come by after the storm, and it makes it really easy to just use their plow truck and move that snow off of the road with just their plow. So that is a really great tool that they can use to help use less salt because it's mixed with water. So it's like 70% water and only 30% salt. So it's a lot less salt. And since it's a liquid, it stays on the road. It doesn't bounce off into the sidewalk or get kicked around by people walking over it. It stays right there on that road. It doesn't move until that snow comes, and then it helps to just make it really easy to just push that snow right off of there. So that's another really good tool that we like to encourage those professionals to use so that they can use less salt. So what do you think are some things that like we could do? So what are something that you guys can do? Because right, I don't have a plow truck. I don't know how to do any of that. That's not my job. So unfortunately, I can't go out and use less salt on the roads because I'm not a plow truck driver. But what do you think are some things that we could do, you know, when we're going out or when we see our friends and our neighbors? Is there anything you could think that we could do just as citizens, as people who use those sidewalks and roads? When you guys go out in the wintertime, do you wear your shorts and flip-flops? Anybody do that? Maybe a few of you do.
To be silly.
Right. So typically we get bundled up, right? We wear the appropriate clothes for the weather. Well, in the winter, it's really important to wear the right types of shoes, which are winter boots that have good traction on the bottom. Because if we do a good job of walking safely and we wear winter boots, then that means whoever job it is to keep that sidewalk or parking lot safe doesn't have to put as much salt down because they know that we're being safe too. We're wearing boots and we're watching where we're walking. So we're not going to be as likely to slip and fall because we're paying attention and we're wearing good winter boots. So that's a really simple thing that everybody could do. You don't have to drive a plow truck to make that change. Is there any other ideas you guys have? I like that we've got a few of you speaking up. And if you can't use your microphone, you can type it in too into the chat.
Well, Brooke, at our house, we have this cool tool and it's on a handle, kind of like a shovel, but at the bottom, it's big, heavy metal blade or like chunk kind of. And we scrape the ice off of our sidewalk. And so I don't have salt at my house. And maybe that's just because I have such a little patch I take care of, but I can just use that ice scraper on the patch if it ever does get icy. And that's worked really good for my little house that I take care of. So I think that's a good solution for people who take care of a sidewalk at home.
Yeah, I get to hear about all these cool shovels and ice scrapers at these trainings because I get to learn from the pros who actually do this for their job. And so now I've gone and bought a few of them for my own little, property that I have to try to keep safe in the winter. And we did get one of those ultimate ice scrapers, and they do a fantastic job of scraping up that ice without having to use any salt.
I want to try
Another
yours.
thing that I like that my kids love to do is they love to help shovel. So I don't know if you guys like to go out and help shovel, but I know that my son, that's one of the first things he wants to do when he gets up in the morning is go help shovel. And so that's another really good thing that we can do is you want to shovel often and early, because if we wait until we get like 3 inches of snow and then a bunch of people walk on it, you go to the bus, and then a car drives over it as they leave for work. And then by the time you get home, by the end of the day, all that 3 inches of snow has been packed down and it's on the concrete, and it's going to be really hard to get it up later. So that's something that you guys can certainly do is go out and help shovel and get rid of all of that snow before people walk on it. So the more snow and ice that we can get rid of using shovels and ice scrapers, the easier it is to keep that surface safe, because that's our main goal is we just want to keep it safe. So we don't necessarily have to use salt to keep it safe. There's a lot of other things we can do to keep it safe. So that's something you guys can all do. You guys can all help shovel. Do you guys think that everybody knows that the salt we're putting down on our roads in the wintertime is so bad for fish? Do you guys think people know that? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know my kids know it because they hear their mom talking about it all the time, but I don't know if a lot of other people know. So what can we do about that? How do we let people know? Is there any ideas there? I don't know, maybe you guys have done like a Zoom, family party or something. Oh, look at that. Posters.
Posters. I like that idea.
That's a really good idea. Put up some signs and some posters that say like salt pollutes.
Let's use less.
Use less.
Wear your boots.
Right? Or how about Minnesota, the land of 10,000 fresh lakes, not salty lakes. Keep our lakes from getting salty. So that's a good idea. Some posters. And if I'm sure all of you have family that you talk to, maybe you've done a virtual Zoom family party, you could let them know, because chances are that just because they're an adult doesn't mean they know that salt is bad for Minnesota's lakes. So you could certainly let them know what you learned today.
Brooke, can I ask one sciencey question real quick? So at the Pollution Control Agency, if there were two streams and it looked like some of the sensitive species that are sensitive to chloride specifically were not there, what would a scientist do next to find out if it was the salt that was making that difference, or maybe it was something else?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's like a really fun part of why I love having this opportunity to be a scientist. I get to use the science side of it and then figure out how to solve the problem. And one way is we have to understand the problem. And so we know that there's a problem because the fish, we know that because of the species we saw in there, something's not right. We should see more of those sensitive species than what we're seeing. And so the first thing we could do is look at the land around the lake. What are we doing on the land that might be affecting what's going on in that stream? And then another step we would take is to actually collect some water samples and look for different types of pollution. So then we can say, okay, it looks like this stream is really high in chloride. That might be one of the things that is causing a problem for those sensitive Minnesota species in this stream. And so then once you have a good understanding of, okay, we see a lot of parking lots and roads on the land around this lake, it's high in chloride, and then you would take that information and start to make those changes, to come up with these ideas. And like I said, I don't just come up with these ideas by myself because I'm not a plow driver. I don't own a property. And so I have to work with the professionals. So I have to make friends with the plow truck drivers and say, hey, you guys, I know you have a really important job. And do you have any ideas for how you could still do your job really great, but use less salt, and learn from them? So I think that's another really important part of my job is I have to learn. I'm always learning something new every day from other people whose jobs are more affected by the amount of salt that we're using. So I think that is a good thing to think about, is what can you learn from other people?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we came up with some great ideas, and we're wondering if there's any final questions from anybody about me and Brooke's job, or the graphs that we made, or the solutions to salt getting into the water. Anything you still wonder?
Everybody wonder, when is it going to snow? When are we going to get snow?
Oh,
I'm wondering
good
that.
Wonder.
When is it going to snow? I don't know if you guys are excited about the snow or if you want it to stay fall. No, we don't want the snow to come. That's fair. That's
Not
fair.
yet,
But
maybe.
It is pretty fun to build snowmen and forts in the snow and go sledding. So there's a lot of fun winter activities. So I kind of like winter, but
I do too.
Could be a little shorter.
Good. Well, I'm so glad we had some participants, and your ideas and thoughts were really good. And it will be fun to share this video with even more people through YouTube. So Paula and Madeline, do you want to close us out in any way?
Yes. Thank you guys. What a great presentation. I think my favorite part was that you don't have to wait for the ice to form before you try to take care of it. You can just simply shovel and get it off the surface and prevent it from forming in the first place. I like that tip. Good advice as we head into the colder months here. So yes, no further questions. So we'll just say a thank you to all of our participants, and then I'll put up our website again real quick. And just as a reminder that all the recordings will be posted on our YouTube channel, which is you can access through our website here at metrocwf.org. The 2 sessions tomorrow are a mystery of disappearing waterfall and a model stream. We learn how stream flow changes in that one. So if you're interested in attending the last 2, oh no, that's Thursday. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. I think it's Wednesday. That's Thursday. Tomorrow, I have to remember, is Who Polluted? And let's see, Mosquito Mania, where we get to hear from the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District. So those 2 ought to be a lot of fun as well. So if you have time tomorrow, there's still room to register. If not, thank you for participating, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much.